Hey, welcome everyone to this very special presentation, VR for Architects. Learn how to make your clients' jaws drop. My name is Eric Bobrow of the Architect Marketing Institute and also known for ArchiCAD training. My special guest and presenter today is Peter Toohey of Toohey Architects in Maryland in the United States. How are you doing, Peter?
Great. How are you, Eric?
Good, good. So we're going to have a fantastic exploration that you've got all set up. We have currently 440 people in attendance. We had over 1,400 register, and I bet you we'll probably, hit at least half of that 700 or something during today's session live.
That's awesome.
So awesome, Fred. I'm seeing people from Cleveland, Chicago, Wilmington, London, UK, Toronto, Canada, Santa Monica, Johannesburg, South Africa. Hi, Clara. Gold Coast, Australia. So you're up early there. Yeah, Northern Ireland, all over the place. So great stuff. So Peter, you've been working with this virtual reality stuff and with 3D architectural software for a long time. I know you have a lot to share, so I'll just hand it over to you to talk to everybody. I will be staying in the background to answer questions that come in. We also have Peter's colleague, Chris Dvorak, who Peter can explain what he does, but he's sort of the person who executes a lot of this stuff. He's the tech expert in Peter's office. But I will be here and I will return on screen in I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour when you're done with the actual main presentation. So take it away, Peter.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Thank you very much. Thanks for all that you've done in the background. So we're going to talk about virtual reality. My firm's 15 years old, and about maybe 10 years ago, I was actually jogging, and I came up with the idea of offering unlimited three-dimensional drawings to everyone. And I was like, I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I eventually figured out a way to do that. And so it's like 30, 40, even 60 renderings per project. Now, they weren't artist renderings, but they were 3D. And I thought I'd like sort of cracked the nut and done it. And then a friend of mine, Henry Berger, actually said maybe 3 years ago, you're really close to virtual reality. I don't know if you even know that. And I didn't. And so we took that leap. And so you're going to hear me talk today. But really, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that need some thanking. So let's start. So first off, thank you to Chris. Chris jumped on the project before there even was a project. It was awesome. He said, yeah, let's model this house. Let's do everything we need to do to get going. And it was awesome. The next thank you goes to my daughter, Kira. She cut my hair, which, as everyone knows, is a huge thing. And I know what you're thinking. Was it the first time she's cut anyone's hair? No. It was the second. That was the first about 19 years ago. But really, the thanks go to Chris, to Eric, to Richard, to really putting this together. Then I have a great group of friends, including Roderick, Michelle, Andrea, Ed, Jeff, Tim. They all helped, and they gave advice when I needed it and encouragement. And they uniformly said make it shorter. So it was 2.5 hours, but we've got it down to maybe 40 minutes. Let's get started. Okay, so who's the presentation for? You guys can read, but this is a good list. So if you want clients that are passionate about the design, this is for you. If you want to transform your clients that are driven by the budget into ones passionate about the design, this is going to help. If you want a distinct competitive advantage, this is going to help too. This is my favorite one though. If you want to help your clients help their clients, so let's say you're designing a synagogue and you want to help them raise money for the synagogue. What better than virtual reality goggles, right? But the same thing if you're designing an office building and you want to get tenants in before the build is even complete, virtual reality. And the last one, anyone interested in raising their fees, that usually is pretty interesting. All right, so just a quick, what are we going to do and where are we now? Is it working? I'm going to talk about some workflow objections. There are objections to virtual reality. Let's get into them. Let's talk about that. There are benefits too. Let's see what those are. And then the last one, how can I get there? So the first question is, are you using CPT or does your firm use VR? And if you're confused by this, it's because I made up CPT. It's caveman painting technology. So are you using virtual reality or the pinnacle of caveman painting technology, which is, you got it, a rolled up set of drawings. So this is a really serious question, actually. I know I've kind of guised it in, bizarre attempt at humor, but let's dig into this just for a minute. It won't take long. So cavemen started painting in walls 40,000, maybe 14,000 years ago, and they probably had a stick, or maybe they're using their finger, and we literally have been diligently honing that technology ever since. And the good news is, I think we finally perfected it. I think we did. So the first thing, upgrading the technology is never easy, but the first thing we worked on was the wall, right? So it became tablets at one point in time, then it was parchment, then paper, then for a hot minute we used Mylar, remember that? And then now we're back to paper, and everyone's going to agree that this is a huge leap in technology. Even Moses would agree, right? Because he could have put those 10 commandments on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and just put them in his back pocket. It would have worked for him. And every time I think of that Mel Brooks movie, but we can all agree that we've upgraded the wall really well, right? Paint. So they had two options back then, red and black, iron oxide and charcoal. Now we have like a million colors more, and the possibilities are endless. No question, we've done a great job on that paint. Okay, that's stick, right? So we've been working on the stick hard. So first it became a quill, then it was a pencil, maybe a pen, then technical pens and pencils, all that kind of stuff. And then somewhere around 40 years ago, we switched over to computers for drafting, right? And that was a huge leap because computers, we all know, amazingly precise. So if we want a wall maybe 23 feet, 3 3/8 inches away from another wall, that's what we're going to get. It's going to be exactly that dimension. So this is a massive leap in caveman painting technology. Okay, style, right? So the, back then, 14,000, 40,000 years ago, the cavemen drew very flat representations of the world that they saw. And then somewhere around 1470, plus or minus, there's that big leap. We learned the 1-point perspective. And then only 70 years after that, a gigantic leap to the 2-point perspective, right? That was 1525, again, plus or minus, so 500 years. And I'll wager that, from that day or soon thereafter, up until yesterday, architecture students all over the world were taught the 2-point perspective. I was taught it. It's time consuming, right? So we as a rule don't offer too many 3D drawings to our clients because, that's, it just takes a lot of time. All right, so here it is, the pinnacle of CPT. Yesterday, last week, last month, architects all over the world unrolled their set of drawings for their clients. Some were colorful, all were precise, some included one or even a couple of 2-point perspectives. We expected our clients to use their imaginations to visualize the buildings, right, from the flat drawings on the page to fully 3-dimensional buildings in their minds. And that's a tall ask, right? The projects could be a building, could be a home, could be as little as maybe 100 grand or as much as 5 million, 20 million, a lot more. It's expensive, right? And still, we ask our clients to make 1,000 decisions relying in part on their untrained and incomplete imaginations and our word that their buildings are going to be practical and beautiful and work for them. And to be fair, yes, we do show them a lot of drawings. Drawings illuminate the design. That's what we do. We're architects, we make drawings. But we have to also admit that the drawings are very clear to us, but they're confusing, right, to our clients. And they certainly cause almost as much confusion as they, illuminate the design, right? But before we get it, we're going to get right back to that. But before we get into that confusion, let's talk about something. Well, first, let me ask you, in the chat box, are your clients confused at times by your drawings? I know mine are, but maybe I'm alone in this. Maybe it's just not that widespread a problem. Maybe your clients fully get it all the time. Put that in there. And then we're going to continue on because we're getting to my favorite part, which is sketching. I just love to sketch. It's a very brief detour, you know, and I think it's a really important part of the design process. You know, literally pen to paper. There's something physical that happens in a design. And so here I was in Rome maybe 5 years ago, and obviously I'm drawing the Pantheon, and I found this spot that had two major advantages. The first one was because it was a really hot day, this spot was in the shade. And secondly, it was at a cafe. So they're like feeding me iced lattes the whole time, and I had a table to work with. So I love to sketch. I bet most people here love sketching. I bet, you know, we do. We're architects. We like to sketch. Go ahead and agree if you want in the you know, in the comment section, and because we're all fluent in Sketch, all of us. The problem is our clients, you know, I don't know, they speak Pigeon Sketch, right? So they peck out maybe 50% of the intent of our drawings, and that might even be generous. I don't know. So Pigeon Sketch, right? So it's confusion because remember, our clients are very smart people. They've hired architects. They're smart people. You know, they're not trained and they don't hone that muscle of visualizing 3 dimensions. And so it's a struggle, just like it would be a struggle for any of us to start, I don't know, dentistry. So we really have to get down to, it's either that we didn't listen very well to what they needed, right? Or didn't design what they wanted, or there's a lost in translation thing happening. So if there is confusion, which there always is, right? That causes indecisiveness, right? And so the clients don't know what to do. So in order to get that feeling, you know, that they've got the power that they have, you know, they're the clients, they just want to change something. And sometimes the problem, you know, is that they change something that's not in their own best interests. Sometimes it even diminishes the design. It always causes delays. So what to do? So if there was an antidote, if there was, what would it even look like? It would have to be like a, I don't know, a speaking in tongues kind of thing, right? You know, we speak Sketch, they speak Pigeon Sketch, but yet suddenly, you know, architect and client fully understand everything. Clients would become decisive. They would know that they're making the right decisions for their project. They would know that. They would see exactly what's in our imaginations. It would be impossible to overstate the importance of this, right? It's like starting to sound like a miracle. Well, here is that miracle. So virtual reality. So I did this project in ArchiCAD, right? And brought it into Twinmotion. And William Gibson said, the future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. And so now the question is, do you want to be the future that has virtual reality or the one that doesn't? We get the choice, and we have it today, right? That's our choice today. In the first part of this presentation, slides 5, 6, 7, whatever, there's probably 6 or 7 of them, showed drawings of this home. And maybe they made a huge impression on you. Maybe they did. I hope they did. You know, Chris and I worked on this home for this course that we're going to be offering, so that we could give the files to everybody. But my guess is that this video is making a much larger impression on you than any of the drawings did. We're talking about emotional environments that we create to help our clients fully understand the drawings, and so that they can make the best decisions for them. Right? That's what we're talking about. So the question is, for virtual reality, is it just a bridge too far? So that bridge on the top is in China. I think it's like 24 miles long. It's like a marathon to go from one side to the other. I think it's the longest bridge on this planet right now. And the second one is a pedestrian bridge. I think it's in Vietnam. And so the question is it too far, or can we just easily walk across? That's the question. So the answer to that question is, of course, another question. And that question is, how much do you, how well do you currently model the buildings you do in 3D to produce a set of drawings? So that's the question. And when you answer that question, we can determine how far your bridge is. So if you draft by hand, a part of me is really jealous because I love to draw and get the drafting stool out and the T-squares and everything. I love doing that, and I've always loved doing that. But your bridge is too far. So your next step, if you're even interested, is to learn to model buildings in 3D, right? And it's a completely different way of thinking and drafting and all that kind of thing. You're going to want to select a platform. There's ArchiCAD, Revit, there's Vectorworks, there's more. I personally use ArchiCAD. I really like it. But my recommendation, no matter what platform you select, is to get the tutoring, because these programs are extremely powerful, but they're not intuitive. And they have layers and layers and layers, and you're going to need help. Everyone, I paid for tutoring. It was a great idea back then. So if you're in group number 2, where you draft on the computer but 2D twice, which is where I was maybe 20 years ago, we would put the drafted in 3D, and then at some certain point we would export our elevations and then just start drawing with lines, because we couldn't control the 3D enough. And I did that for maybe a year, maybe more. I hesitate to think it was more. But you're still in the same group as number 1. If that's where you are, then the bridge is too far. So you need to first, get the 3D drafting going. Again, ArchiCAD, Revit, all similar in many ways, but get the tutoring, because again, these programs are extremely powerful but not intuitive. Okay, so now, but I want to put a thought in your minds. So what if I told you that if you did 10,000 sit-ups, so 100 sit-ups a day for 100 consecutive days, that you would lose 1 pound? I guaranteed it. Would you do it? If you're like me and you hate sit-ups, you're going to say no. I'd be right where I was when I started. At 1 pound, it doesn't make a difference. So that's a little bit the deal they made with computer drafting. So we would draft these buildings, homes, skyscrapers, or anything else by hand. And then they said, wait, no, you could do it on the computer. And at the end, you have the same exact thing. You have a set of drawings on the one side and a set of drawings on the other. But now, when you draft on the computer 3D, it's different. So what if I said, instead of just losing 1 pound, what if I guaranteed after 10,000 sit-ups that you would have movie star good looks? What if I could guarantee that? So you would look like, I don't know, Brad Pitt or Scarlett Johansson or anyone else. That would be, people would say, well, wait a minute, I might do that. And that's what we're saying today. So today, the computer, when you draft in 3D, we're offering movie star good looks. That's what we're offering, which is virtual reality. So if you're in group 3, where you draft in 3D, but it's kind of the minimum to get to a set of permit drawings, your bridge, you can get there, right? It's a little bit longer, but you can get there. We're going to teach you, how to organize your model. We're going to get you fired up, because you're going to realize the movie star good looks are within reach. And so you're going to upgrade your 3D drafting technique. And then if you're already drafting, making a BIMX model, you're in group 4, you've got a very easy walk across. It's a stroll, really. And we're going to show you, again, tricks to organize the model, but really how to maximize that emotional impact of Twinmotion. So workflow. So to me, and again, this is a good spot to talk about workflow. So what Chris and I do is, I'll design a little bit, then Chris models in 3D, then I put it into Twinmotion, and we go around that way. So this little drawing is showing conceptual design, but it's also showing schematic design, design development, and even up through construction drawings. So we just keep going around in this circle, and the Twinmotion models get better and better. So early in the process, we'll start with the exterior, right? And then our clients get to walk around their house, they get to fly over that, whatever, but they don't get to go inside the house until we've developed that. So we're trying to keep the line very linear from concept all the way down to the permit drawings. And that works for us, but then these little bumps in the road are the Twinmotion. And every time, the best part about Twinmotion for ArchiCAD and for Revit, for others too, is that when you update your model, it automatically updates in Twinmotion. So that's an amazing advantage, So I think the choice of Twinmotion, and remember, I get Twinmotion, and I'm a client of theirs. That we have no relationship at all other than that. But it's an easy choice. It's fast. It's relatively simple to learn, and it gets your clients into virtual reality. That's a game changer. And then if it's inexpensive, or for a lot of people who have ArchiCAD and they're on a subscription, it's free. So, that's hard to beat. Okay, so we need to talk about why you shouldn't do virtual reality, because there are reasons, right? And you can read, it's too expensive by far. It takes way too much time, and it's way too complicated. I think people think this, I really do. I know I thought this. And when I was doing the research a couple of years ago, I knew it was too expensive, but I didn't know how expensive. So let's start to talk about this, right? But before we talk about it, how much is too much, right? And to see your client's jaws just drop, but it's not a client, it's every single client from today forward. So as well as a guy, Mark Watney in The Martian, let's do the math, right? So first, we'll start with the platinum scenario. So this is, top of the line computer, top of the line headset, for the goggles, and then the software. Let's just start adding up numbers, right? Because that's all you need. That's it. So virtual reality headsets here, I see, 700, 800, 900, 1,000, something like that. And all I did was Google this. You can do this too. Computer, this was a little bit more interesting. So I put in Windows because Apple still is kind of behind, and I'm an Apple guy. Every computer except one is an Apple computer. But you just type in, I put a really good graphics card. That was important. And then 32 gig of RAM. I did an extra big 2 to 4 terabyte hard drive because you're going to be using that space. It's basically a gaming computer. That's what this is, a gaming computer. And you can see 1500, 22, 17. They're in that range. And then Twinmotion. So Twinmotion is a limited time offer, $249. And then again, for the people on the ArchiCAD subscription, it's included. So that's amazing. So the platinum costs somewhere between $1,650 and $3,250. And again, it's less if you ArchiPlus member or something like that. Not bad, no, but could it be lower? Yes. What if you already have a great computer? You bought the computer just this past year. Maybe not, but it probably needs a new graphics card because virtual reality really leans on that graphics card. So, so we get it down to $1,350 to $2,250, again, less if you already have the software, but you might even have the computer. So let's talk about just getting the game. Like, what's the getting the game cost? Because what I've been talking about up till now is the recommended specs, and I've been going above them, knowing that, computer programs always need more and more power, right? So trying to max out what you can do today so that you don't have to get another computer in 6 months, right? So that was that. But to get in the game, like, what if we just did the minimum specs? Now, the minimum isn't going to be enough to actually go, I don't believe, into virtual reality. You're going to get crashes and things like that. But you could set up virtual reality environments, right? And we're going to be talking about this. Eric and I kind of named this the Strategic Pandemic Business Development Project, which seems pretty wordy, but maybe we can, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this will get you started, so get in the game. So to me, what I did is I put a little bit of money in there for a new graphics card. It's not the top of the line. It's only 170 bucks. And I thought, let's be generous. Let's get some more RAM for you. It was like 32 bucks for 16 gig of RAM. So let's do that. So that should take just about any computer and get it up to a get in the game area. And then what could that cost? So we're going to get the virtual reality headsets and the computer later, when the clients come back. But right now we spend the 32 bucks, the 170, the software, you're at 450. But really, I mean, if you already have your ArchiCAD, Revit or similar, you've got a good computer with good graphics card, and Twinmotion can be free. It could literally be as little as zero. So, it's I don't think it's too expensive. I don't think any of those are out of range for really anybody. So that's so I don't think too expensive is a good reason why not to do virtual reality. But I think most of us thought, at the beginning, well, that's probably going to be expensive, but maybe not too expensive. But the time is always the issue, because time is money and all that, and it's going to take way too much time. So, let's see what things did take. So again, these are images of the renderings of that video that will look great when you see it, when you go to vrforarchitects.com. But the home itself took me about 4 hours to design. Again, I was trying to come up with something that would be exciting for architects, because we need a little eye candy, we do, I do. And but really simple. I was looking for simple, and something that could be modeled relatively quickly. So Chris did, I was going to say 90%, but that's really all of the modeling. And then he gave it back to me, and I did the Twinmotion. So again, we work like like that. So 4 hours to design, 20 hours to model in 3D, and then 4 hours for Twinmotion. Another hour, probably a little bit less than that, for to do the iMovie. So what I want you to get from this isn't that you can design a house in 4 hours, because I can't do it. I can kind of do it with this, knowing that there are holes. But the idea is that the design's going to be more, right? The modeling in 3D is going to be more, right, for a normal project. But the Twinmotion is going to be more, but just by a little, right? Because we really maxed the Twinmotion. So Twinmotion isn't the big deal in the time perspective. What is the big deal is the modeling in 3D from ArchiCAD or Revit or whichever. So that's what I want, where the real time is, and the design time, and that's where it should be. So that's a good thing. So it doesn't take too much time. So now you're going to say, well, it's really complicated, and you might even be starting to think, when it comes to virtual reality, Peter probably has a genius level IQ. You're probably thinking that, right? Well, if you are, thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you very much. But you would be wrong. I do not. It's we're going to offer 3 classes, and by the end of the 3 classes, you're nearly going to be an expert. You're going to be well on your way, because it's not too complicated. So it's easy enough for even a guy in his 50s to do it. So it is not too complicated. It's you can take that off the page immediately. So I did teach myself. It took a couple of months. I kind of wish I had a course similar to this to get me going, because there was starts and fits, and so it wasn't always easy when you're teaching yourself. Again, this image just as a just to tell people a little bit about what I did to this. So I obviously added the people. I tweaked the glass. Chris had the idea to make the decks off of the house with glass as their floor, which I thought was awesome. So we did that. I added the table, those chairs, and then the stuff on the table. They're all library parts, drag and drop, super simple. And then we started with the lighting and the weather and the clouds, and that's it. So not complicated. This one's the same thing. For this, again, put the stuff on the table. We use the Twinmotion appliances. They're just better. We did a couple of tricks for the lights, the pendants hanging above. So again, relatively easy. But we keep talking about Twinmotion, and the webinar is called virtual reality. So what's the difference? And so I read somewhere where virtual reality is 1 click away once you're in Twinmotion. That's not true. It's 2 clicks. So the first one is the eyeball in the upper right, and then you get that pull down menu and you hit the VR. And once you've set up your room, you just go right in. It is 2 clicks. It is as easy as that. It's really not complicated. So we can take complicated off. So there are benefits. Are there benefits? Yes, there are. So you can think of a lot of benefits right off the bat, but I want to, you could see the clarity that you'll be discussing your designs with your clients. That's obviously a benefit. The amount of video content that you can use for marketing, the renderings that you can do that are, again, very, very simple. These are all benefits, but I want you to think about discerning clients. So what are they gonna want? And you can imagine in the not too distant future, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3, right? A discerning client with an awesome project comes into your office, and you're talking, and during the interview, that client says, "Tell me about your virtual reality capabilities." And then you have probably just a couple of different answers. One of them is, architects for thousands of years have, didn't need virtual reality. We don't need it now. It's just not necessary. So, or you'll say, "That's a great question. Here, I have some goggles here. I have a cover for the goggle that you can take with you. They cost like between $5 and $10. So this will be your cover to make sure that nothing touches your face except your cover, which is sanitary." And then that's your other answer. So the worst part about that is that you can imagine a situation where a far less talented architect, right, that happens to have VR capabilities are going to win those jobs. So okay. So what are benefits that, again, when we get that that speaking in tongues miracle of virtual reality where everyone's completely understanding everyone, change orders almost go away. So 90% of change orders are based on, again, the client not fully understanding the drawings. It's almost never in my experience, it's almost never the contractor or even the architect. But again, the client saying, "I thought this was going to be bigger or smaller, more left or more right or whatever." And then the contractor runs out, gets his tape measure and says, "No, it's exact. The drawing said 23 feet 3 3/8, and here it is, exact." So it's change orders going away. It's great. Oh yeah, and those your fee, right? Those less talented virtual reality architects that are winning the job, they're charging higher fees. They will. Yeah, let that sink in. They're less talented and charging higher fees. How is that even possible, right? So VR clients appreciate the design because they understand the design, right? When you're caveman painting technology, your CPT, they fixate on what they fully understand, which most times is the budget. So they're not emotionally invested in the design anywhere near where you want them to be. So that's the big deal here. So they're charging higher fees because they're offering the Ferrari, right? And you're offering not the Ferrari from a client's perspective, right? So we all know that our clients are really smart. There's no question about that. We also know that smart people hate it when they don't feel smart. And that's what they feel like when you show them a set of drawings. The architects become the brilliant people in the room because we fully understand this. And they turn the pages and they're pecking out 50 to 80%, but it's not more than that. So they don't like it. And is that true? Does anyone else have that experience? Again, this is the kind of thing that it might only be my clients who I see kind of pull back a little bit. But write in the chat if the spirit moves you. But what's zero risk bias? So it states that people want to eliminate risk rather than mitigate the risk. So this is maybe explains the run on toilet paper during a pandemic, right? People control what they can control, so they want to have enough toilet paper. But I think it might explain McMansions, right? So a person walks into a McMansion, they see that the front is kind of squirrely, and then the sides and the back of the house are just flat out ugly. And then they also see that the rooms are bloated and the design is, not great, and it has a price tag, and they negotiate the price and they buy it, instead of going to an architect and then getting a custom design that's a little bit smaller, because we're going to include in the custom design home the architect's fee. So that's a little bit smaller house for the same money as this bloated house that's ugly. Now you get a beautiful custom home that's tailored exactly to the way you live and want to live. So why don't people do that? It's because there's risk involved, right? They know that they're not going to understand the drawing. So it's who knows at the end what they're exactly going to get. We know, they don't. So, but virtual reality would eliminate that risk. And then the last one I just think is funny. So this happened to two of my clients where they say they've owned the dinner party. I get this call on Tuesday or whenever, and they say, yeah, everyone's like leaning into the discussion about virtual reality. And I never knew that dinner parties were a competitive event. Nobody told me we were competing. I didn't know. But they're telling stories about your virtual reality. That's what they're doing at their dinner parties. It's amazing. All right, so what's the fastest way to go from CPT to VR? Well, there's probably a couple ways, but we're offering classes for exactly this. And we're going to give you everything you need to ramp up from 0 to 60 as fast as it can be done. So it's 3 classes. What we're going to do basically is show you the 3D file, in this case ArchiCAD. Then we're going to show the Twinmotion file quickly. Then we're just going to rename the ArchiCAD file and start a new Twinmotion file. So it's right at the very start. So step by step, every single thing we did. Then on the second one, we're going to show you again the step-by-step process, but really focus on the emotional element, how we got the emotional element to be high. And then we're going to complete it in the third. Yeah, in just 3 hours, we're going to complete the waterfall home, because I've done it now 3 times, so I know I can do it in this amount of time. And then we're going to get you into virtual reality. We'll show you that, how long that takes and all that kind of stuff. So, when we're talking about emotional content, right? Our goal includes, but it doesn't focus on learning the technology. It includes, but doesn't focus on that. What we're really going to focus in on is the why you would want to do this. People buy on emotion, and then they justify those decisions with logic. So we're going to show you how to increase the emotional content of your renderings, of those videos, of the virtual reality environments. So that's going to be high on our list. And obviously, we're going to have to teach you the how to get to the why, but we're focused on the why. And the point is this, that it's a strategic one that always has 2 things at its core. 2. First one is creating an awesome experience for your client. That's always at the core. And the other one is winning more business. So those 2, those are the why. And then we say, well, how do you do those 2? So we said everything you need. So again, we've said this before, but the 3D files, ArchiCAD and Revit are included. The waterfall home Twinmotion files included, and we're throwing in the iMovie file too. And the waterfall home is copyrighted. So if you or one of your clients wants to build this house, run, don't walk, run to the phone so we can work something out. And the best part about this is that once you sign up and download the files, right, and buy a set of VR goggles, if your computer can handle it, you're in virtual reality land in an hour. You don't have to do any work. It's already done. So that's fun too. All right, so how much? That's the big question everyone wants to know. And so Eric, Richard, Chris, and I had many discussions on this, and our feeling was that we wanted to make this an easy decision for every firm, we're all in this pandemic together, and we didn't want to put this, at a really high cost. So we started, after the pandemic's over, we're probably going to do this again next year, whenever, and it's going to be at least $500. It would be $500 today. But we said the Corona discount will start at $299, but people signing up this week, we're going to knock another $50 off to make it $249. So that's what we're offering right now. And remember, what we're selling here is all the knowledge and the secrets that I learned the hard way, right? So it was weekends, it's evenings, it was all the cussing, everything. And so what you're probably thinking is you're selling your competitive advantage. Why? It is a little stupid. I'll admit it is a little stupid, but our clients need this service. They need it. They do not visualize like we do, right? It's not even close. Just like, we need our accountants because our accounting isn't even close to what they do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and our industry needs to provide this service, right? So we need, as architects, we need to be ahead of this, not behind. So the four of us were really just trying to help. So we talked about, what can we do like right now? So a lot of us are in the position that we've got more than a normal amount of time on our hands and less than a normal amount of cash. So if this is your situation, even if it isn't, what can you do in these current circumstances that will strategically position your firm to come out of the downturn better than where you were when it started? There's probably a lot of answers to this question. If you're drafting by hand, maybe it's learning to draft in 3D, or maybe it's learning to increase your watercolor skills or something like that. Maybe it's model making with physical models. If you're already on the computer but not drafting in 3D, maybe you take those classes. But if you're close to virtual reality, I think it's a real option for you. So Abe Lincoln said that if you give him 6 hours to chop down a tree, he'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. So what I'm telling you is sharpen your axe right now. So invest in yourself, and whatever that is, whether it's virtual reality or anything else, but now is the time to sharpen your axe. And so we talked about this strategic pandemic business development project. What would that be? So it maximizes the abundance of time that you have, but it doesn't require a bunch of cash. So it's learn the tools, Twinmotion, and then take one or more, as many as you can, and put them into Twinmotion now, right? And make all the 3D visualizations absolutely beautiful, the renderings, put them on your website, the videos, upload them. And then down the road, when the next potential client walks in, as they're interviewing you, you interview them. So when they ask about this and that, and you say, well, tell me about your dream, and they start describing their project, in your mind, you're cycling through which virtual reality environment most closely matches that. And then you give them the goggles with their special cover on the goggles, and you say, here, just step in here and see if this is close for you. And then you ask them one question. You simply say, with this kind of information throughout the design process, do you think you could consistently and confidently make the right decisions? And you already know the answer, right? So, and then I recommend keeping your mouth shut, because the virtual reality goggles are going to do all the talking. So if you can't beat them, join them. Virtual reality is competing against it is almost impossible. I mean, they've got an almost unbeatable razzle-dazzle presentation. So why not make it yours? So again, we're talking about emotion. They buy an emotion, justify it with logic. So we're going to teach you how to upgrade that emotional content to make their decisions super easy. So let's just finish by connecting the dots, right? So if they time and again know that they're making the right decisions, right, and they will, then they are making the right decisions, right? And so that path only leads to one outcome, which is a super happy client. And these super happy clients are talking at dinner parties. They're talking to their friends and family about, and remember, they're the hero of their own story, but in their story are your razzle-dazzle presentations. you know, they put on the goggles and they made the big decision to change the floor to stone, whatever. But the goggles are in there, and then you can hear the family members and friends saying, "What was the name of that architect again?" And so we know where that path leads, right? They're going to have effusive testimonials, and you're going to get bigger and better clients. It just there's no other way. So, you know, great drawings show what a project, a home, or whatever, what it looks like. Great drawings. Great virtual reality shows what that home looks like for the project, but in a far, far, far clearer way and in a language that you know your client is already fluent, right? And great virtual reality shows what that project feels like. Drawings will never do that. All right, so testimonial. So I taught Andrea Twinmotion just a couple of weeks ago, and I owed DX Dempsey a favor, and so we were, you know, bartering a little bit. So she wrote this nice testimonial, and she's probably nearly an expert. And Andrea or Corey or Michelle, if you're watching, that Andrea is absolutely an expert. So it's just a nice testimonial. Okay, but the best part, save the best for last, right? The best part is that virtual reality is the best marketing tool ever invented for architects. Richard Petrie, who most of us know, but if you don't know him, you look him up. He said it slightly differently. He said it's the most unfair marketing tool ever invented for architects, which again, to some degree is right. You know, as soon as the focus of the conversation turns to the tech, it's done, you know, so, and, you know, it's amazing technology that's extremely useful for our clients and really super easy to use for us once you know how. So what we're doing is you go to vrforarchitects.com. We have a training course set up there. You click the little circle thing, the new training course at the top. It'll take you down. You sign up. There's that early bird special for the $249, and it's easy. So it's right here. And then you download the files anytime you want, right? And then you watch the classes. So to me, it's a no-brainer. Just the files alone are you know, getting into virtual reality. So I'm going to end here with just a little bit of eye candy, right? So, you know, this is the kind of emotional environment that we're talking about. So what I did for this image is I blurred the background because you can control the depth of field, and then the clouds are already there. You can't really even see them too much. Then I moved the sun to exactly this spot. You know, I think it was 718, and I tried 720, but 718 was a little better. Then I made all the verticals vertical, which is a waste of time because they have a button for that, right? So you just click the button, and all of it took maybe 15 or 30 seconds at the most. So that's what we get in a very short amount of time. And I was going to go ahead and open up for some questions. What do we got?
We had close to 700 people at the peak. Right now we're still at 574. So thank you all for sticking with this. Peter, fantastic presentation. We have a ton of comments, a ton of questions. I tried to respond as quickly as I could to the ones I could, as well as just hitting a period just so that you could see each other's comments when it was more just general feedback. Mm-hmm. I have flagged a bunch of questions that came in, and I said, hey, I'll ask Peter about it. So okay. Let me just go back towards the beginning of where I started to do that here. Do you find that clients are asking you to draw multiple variations? For instance, how do you deal with a client that wants you to put 10 different pendant light fixtures in the dining room model?
I find actually the opposite is more true. So again, the people who are confused by the drawings don't know what to do, so they ask for more. But when people have great clarity, they see it, oh, this is great. So we do sometimes change things, but it's less now than it was before.
Okay, so Twinmotion versus Lumion. You don't have to answer it, but if you have any insights, let me know.
So they're both very good, right? The reason I like Twinmotion is, for me, it's free. So I'm not, you know, Lumion at whatever it costs is, again, it's not the same, but similar. It's like ArchiCAD and Revit, and there are pluses and minuses to both. But until Lumion gives me a couple $100 to use it, or is free, I'm going to just stick with Twinmotion.
Okay. Apple configuration. So I know you're a longtime Mac user, and you decided that you wanted to go the full VR experience. So you got a PC to sit in your office when you wanted to go just for the VR experience. You want to talk a little bit about that? We can keep it brief.
Yeah, so what I did is I had a client of mine who is a real tech guy come in because he wanted to see his project in virtual reality. And so I said, set it up. I have the goggles. I have a computer. I bought an iMac Pro and set it up. And he goes, I'll set it up. I can't wait. So he came over and he couldn't do it. And, we were talking about partitioning the hard drive and that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not a computer guy, not interested. I didn't want to trick my iMac Pro into thinking it was a Windows machine. That's a personal thing. Other people are smarter. I know that I'm the IT department for my company, and I'm no good at this. So I took that off the table. So when it took him 2 hours to figure out that he couldn't do it, and he was on the Google trying to get each and every step along the way. So I literally went from that meeting right to the computer store 10 miles away, bought a computer. We spent the last half hour picking the computer out that I was going to buy, and then a day and a half later, I had my first virtual reality meeting with this guy and his family. His teenage son showed up. Everyone was super excited. It was an amazing thing. And then 2 days after that, the next one. So Chris and I have been making these environments for 3 years now, but we've only now just started getting into them because, again, I was too devoted to the Apple product and couldn't figure out a way around it.
So to clarify, Twinmotion is for both Mac and Windows.
I use Twinmotion on my Mac all the time. It's virtual.
So these images, which are far higher quality than, let's say, ArchiCAD's built-in Cine render can do, or even BIMX. And I don't know how Revit compares, but I know Twinmotion is just so easy to make realistic lighting, landscape, human figures, a huge library of things. So all of that, and what Peter's going to be teaching in the classes, 80% of it is going to be basically in Twinmotion, maybe more, 90% or something like that, because basically that's what you do. So if at some point you have a Mac and you want to go to the goggles route, there may be some other options. At some point, the technology, they may develop compatibility. So the class will still be very useful because you'll be able to get far higher quality images and understand more about the emotion and staging and the iMovie that Peter put together. When you look at that, or any of his projects, it's far higher than any architect that I've seen working in-house. And so all of that's possible. It's just the goggles right now are a little bit,
That's exactly correct. You've nailed it. So I do all of my work on a Mac, and Twinmotion works beautifully on that. Again, I have a very high-end Mac. It was intended for virtual reality. That did not work out, but the consequence of that decision is, a super fast machine that easily handles Twinmotion easily. So it doesn't handle virtual reality, which is the one step.
Are clients willing to pay extra for this service?
So yes, for me, what I do is, I compete against other architects all the time, and I usually end up charging more than them, and I win more than my fair share of cost of projects. But I don't even I offer people the ability not to do the virtual reality, but if they don't sign up for that, then I don't take them on as clients. I say, listen, it's because it kind of says something about their devotion to the design. After they've tried it, if they don't want it, they're not the right client for me. So, again, even in this pandemic, which is I'm far slower than I've been at any time, really any time in the 15 years I've been in business. I'm at 50% capacity right now, which is why I put together with Chris and Eric and Richard this course, because Richard asked me at the beginning of the year, he said, write down 3 goals. and make one of them audacious. So I did. And I wrote down, virtual reality for all architects in America. And I knew it was a long range goal. And I had no idea how I was going to even start it. I literally had no idea. But then Eric and I started to talk. Chris started to, get involved and do the model. So that's why we're doing this. So,
question. Great. So there are a number of people who've talked about Vectorworks. So apparently Vectorworks has its own Enscape. There's some type of VR that's available in Vectorworks. I don't know whether it connects into Twinmotion. What I would say is, we can do some more research. You can do some more research, those of you who have Vectorworks. The principles that Peter is talking about of how to dress up a model, how to make it emotionally compelling, how to create animations and other presentation materials very effectively, those will apply even if you're using another tool. Now, can you get as high quality a rendering on the fly, just moving around through the model in this other solution? Don't know, but the principles in the class will definitely apply, largely the same.
Right.
So let's go on to some more questions. How many of the Twinmotion objects are out of the box versus purchased assets? Do you actually buy purchased assets?
You can, right? In the one I did, the waterfall house, all of the assets that I purchased were free. So there's a table, there's a couple other things. We're going to go over that in the class. For me, part of it, and you can see it in this image right here, those are ArchiCAD chairs that I changed the texture of the fabric. So when you zoom in really close, you can see that texture is interesting, as opposed to, ArchiCAD's fabric is, I don't know, forgettable, to be nice. The same thing with the metals. So I went and got a higher quality texture, and again, that was free. And I'm always looking around for areas, but there's going to be times where, a lighting designer puts in their pendant or whatever it is, and they'll charge you money. It's not that much. So specifically, if you're going to reuse something, they're usually pretty easy decisions.
Okay. Please recommend the best VR hardware.
Yeah, so it's different for different people. So the hardware, I'm assuming that you mean the goggles. And so, people have different, it's like recommend the best fruit. Some people like bananas, some people like apples, some people like oranges. But the two at the top are the Oculus and the HTC, those companies. And then there's a couple of others. So there's not really a bad choice. When you're thinking about virtual reality goggles, the first thing that you have to look at is the refresh rate. And it has to be, I think it's above, I'll have to look it up. We'll make a for the people in the course, that recommendation, but there's a level that it can't dip below. And the refresh rate is the thing, because if the refresh rate isn't fast enough, when you move your head, it doesn't move with you. And so it gets people even seasick, right? So that's not a good sign for a meeting, like the client's getting seasick. You don't want that.
So there's a question about web browser-based VR sharing, given our current situation where, we're generally staying remote from each other. I think probably the best thing for a web browser is just to send a video like what Peter has created, because you can host it on YouTube or on other video sharing sources. You can compress it so it's definitely able to be seen on anybody's computer or even their phone. It's not VR because you can't say, oh, let me look the other way, but you can communicate very high quality images. All of the interactive web ones are going to have some serious limitations for a complex model with lighting and surfaces. So
yeah, let me warm up you here, Eric, just a teeny bit. So now imagine this situation that you're designing a building or a home or something like that, and it happens to have a teenage son as part of one of the inhabitants, right? That teenage son probably or could conceivably have virtual reality goggles already. You can, instead of sending an iMovie file, you can send the Twinmotion file. Then they put on the goggles and screen share with their computer. So you're seeing what they see in the goggles. Again, the difference is night and day with the goggles for our clients. So when I put the goggles on, it's kind of like I've already seen this. It's in my mind, right? So but when my clients, even the ones who've seen the videos, they're learning new information. Oh, I didn't realize the ceiling was that high. What do you mean? It was in the video. So the immersive experience of them putting on the goggles, these goggles right here, them putting these goggles on and then just looking around is transformative to them, right? If I was trying to sell a job like to Eric, he visualizes 3 dimensions just as well as I do, and it wouldn't be a benefit to him. But our clients aren't like that. They eat this up so they can do it in their house. I can send the Twinmotion files. And this is also works for people whose clients are remote, like let's say you're Roderick Anderson and you're in Costa Rica designing magnificent homes for Sarco, right? And his clients are in New York and Germany and anywhere else. He sends these files all over the world. So it can be very pandemic-friendly technology.
Good points. So Marek Krukowski says, how about addressing an issue that Twinmotion was and still is rather buggy? Have you experienced it as rather buggy or just a little bit here and there, or you basically work?
Yeah, so the first lesson 1 with Twinmotion, and it's also lesson 2, 3, 4, up to maybe 10, is you have to hit save a lot, because when it does not have, like with ArchiCAD, they have, I don't even know what it's called, but that temporary file. So you can only lose 5 minutes of time or 1 minute or whatever it is, not a lot. But with Twinmotion, if you don't save, like if you start at the beginning of the day and then it crashes at the end and you haven't saved, you lost everything. So, and you can't, and Time Machine won't bring it back, so you have to save. Second is I know what things tend to make it buggy, so I don't do those things. And third is my computer, again, is the top of the line Mac product, so it handles it pretty well. The closer you get to the even the recommended or minimum specs, the more buggy it gets, in my experience.
Good points. Some Twinmotion textures are sketchy, same problem as in ArchiCAD. Any comments on how you make sure that you don't see repeating stuff in the textures?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and we're going to definitely go over that in the class. That's an absolute must, because you can't rely 100% on ArchiCAD or 100% on Twinmotion. So, we're developing a library of textures, and we'll tell you about that for sure.
Okay. There's a question about having your server on site. All of your compiling is done in the cloud. I'm not quite sure. I think let's just pass on that. David Buzzanelli, we'll talk about that separately. Okay. Have a question. Does Twinmotion have more than one ethnicity in terms of the human figures?
Oh yeah, they have a lot. So Asian, African American. They have even Arab people. So they're wide variety of people in there, which I frankly really love.
Okay. Question: assuming you want to apply Twinmotion materials or textures to ArchiCAD objects, in your experience, are most ArchiCAD objects ready for assigning the textures, or do they have to be exploded into separate components?
No. So another really good question. It's part of the tutorial, but we can get into this. So in ArchiCAD, everything is a surface. So every single thing has a surface. So when you're looking at the image that you're looking at right now, the kitchen counter, that's a surface. I think I'm 90% sure that's the ArchiCAD surface. Like that's not even a Twinmotion surface. But I know 100% with those chairs, the surface, out of the box surfaces, whatever, we changed it to Fabric 1, so that when we changed the chairs, we weren't also changing something else. Because what ArchiCAD does is it reuses a lot of different surfaces. So in one project Chris and I worked on probably 2 years ago, we kept changing the pulls on the kitchen cabinets, and it changed all of our window mullions. We're like, what is going on? I couldn't understand it. And then we finally figured out that it's a surface issue. And then from that day forward, we create at least 30, if not 50 additional surfaces, and anything we customize, we put on our, not an out of the box, but our surface, so that so again, it's ArchiCAD and Twinmotion working together, and you got to be very cognizant. On the one side, you have to be thinking, I'm making an ArchiCAD model for the permit drawings, but on the other side of the back of your mind, you're also making it for virtual reality. So you're always thinking, okay, so layers and all that stuff. How am I going to show this on the reflected ceiling plan? How am I going to show it on the section? How am I going to show it also in Twinmotion? And the first couple were layer issues and combinations, and the last one is more of it's that, but then it's also a surface issue. So what we're definitely going to get is that it's a huge part of the success, right?
Mm-hmm. So there's a comment saying Twinmotion 19 is still free. Is the BIM Motion export function real VR? Is BIM Motion connected to Twinmotion?
Yeah. So the BIM Motion is like our BIM Motion. You can put it on an iPad and that kind of thing, and it's pretty good. So what I do now, my workflow is I show somebody one of the videos that I make before I ever give them a BIMX model, because the BIMX model is not it's accurate, but it's not emotional. So if you can sort of imagine, sort of Brad Pitt standing right here, he's a handsome guy, and we could take measurements, his bicep, the distance between his eyes, right, or any other measurement. And then if you imagine him again, but now he's deceased, and so he's on this gurney, right, in a morgue, the measurements are all the same, right? Nothing has changed, but he's not handsome anymore, and the BIMX model does a little bit of that. It's technically accurate, there's nothing wrong with it, or maybe there is, it's just not showing the way that the building feels. It's only showing what it looks like, and it's just a little bit odd. So I make sure I seed my clients first with the video that shows what it feels like, then they get the BIMX model in that order and never a different order. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are questions about computer and software costs. I think you've already covered that, and that'll be, maybe we'll put some more information on the website as a reference for people. Let me just move down. Okay, so actually, I've gone through all the ones that I had marked, but there were a lot of questions that have come in since then. So let me just grab a few more.
Okay.
To take the class, do we need to buy the Twinmotion and the VR goggles? I think people can either get Twinmotion as part of their ArchiCAD subscription, or they can buy Twinmotion to use it. You'd want to have Twinmotion to have the class, or
yes.
But you don't have to have the VR goggles at all.
Nope.
That can be done later.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so there is a comment from John Kellett saying most clients and planners can be happy with white card models because they can imagine the color and textures, which are the memory hungry elements when trying to be photorealistic. Certainly that's good for the early stages. But
yeah, we're going to disagree. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. I just disagree. So what I've found is that our clients, my clients in general, if I change, and it's easy to do, change the texture from, let's say, the patio from stone into brick, let's do that. And they're always surprised at how different that is. Really? Mm-hmm. And so for me, I do agree with what you said, Eric, that early in the project, when I don't want them focusing at all on materials, that doing it all out of white makes a lot of sense. But there are projects, Chris and I were working on a home on the ocean in New Jersey, and so it's got it looks like a Hamptons house, so it's got the gray cedar siding on it. We knew it's going to have gray cedar siding. They want that, and so we put it on there. So it's not white right now. There's no need to make it white. We did the trim white and that kind of stuff. But my point is that sometimes the textures help, and yes, the textures do take up space, but they are, again, incredibly useful, not to us. Again, remember, when I put on the VR goggles, it's like reading a book for the second time. Yeah, maybe I get something, but not a lot. Because I read the book already. I imagined it. I don't need the VR goggles. Our clients are exactly the opposite. Keep going.
Okay. So there's many people have been asking about SketchUp. SketchUp does work. Well, it does have a direct link to Twinmotion. So while we can't comment directly having used it, it should be a very similar experience of having a model, getting it ready for Twinmotion, developing things in Twinmotion, and then updating the model as the design changes. It should be a very similar process. So
right, but I'm going to argue just slightly, and Eric, go ahead and correct me if you think I'm anywhere near wrong. I just can't imagine that workflow being overly, from a business perspective, profitable. So you have 3D technology in ArchiCAD and learning that 3D technology so that you're facile in that world. That's the key, because when you're done with your SketchUp model, really what you have is nothing. So then you can bring that into Revit or ArchiCAD or whatever, and then spend all that time getting it right to where it would have been had you just modeled it in ArchiCAD. So I just don't understand that. And again, I'm not saying I'm right. I just don't understand it.
All right, so let's just change the context here. If you have SketchUp and you're really comfortable modeling, and you have a 2D documentation tool that you're comfortable interfacing with, you can bolt on the Twinmotion and get much higher quality images, and you can go to VR, no problem. Now, if you rethink the whole thing and say, why are you using SketchUp plus AutoCAD, for example, then that's another question. And if you decide later on, hey, I'm going to buy Revit or I'm going to buy ArchiCAD and combine 2D and 3D in an integrated fashion, well, the Twinmotion stuff will still be there. So let's say the idea of doing VR, the idea of doing high quality visualization, it's all the same there. Now, there's one person here who's made a couple of comments about you have to make so many design decisions, rendering decisions, etc., setting up lighting and textures and things like that. He says that's a challenge, that's an issue, it's time consuming. Your experience seems to be that you've worked out a workflow where it is a relatively small percentage of effort to be able to get high quality visualization of the design. And what you've said to me, Peter, is that while you put in some extra effort there's no denying that there's some effort, the payback is not only that the clients just want to work with you. You can do this, great. You get them to instantly make decisions, so the time spent in design is made much more efficient. All of the meetings, it's just, yes, you have to do some extra work, but it saves you a lot.
So extra is probably the wrong word, right? So what you're really doing is doing that work that you're going to do sooner or later anyway. I mean, there's going to be a pendant light. It's going to have to be selected. I mean, if we're doing a kitchen, so it has a pendant light or whatever. So it's just a matter of when. And again, there's something that's really, really, really beautiful about working with a client that is super confident in their decisions. And that's what we all want. And so to me, the extra isn't the word I would choose for that. It's I'm moving that up in the process, and I would agree to that. But what I keep finding again and again is that people see it and they're like, wow, that looks super good. Thank you. They say things like that. And so again, it's the changes are less frequent, and again, like let's be I don't know, generous isn't the right word, but realistic. Let's say that my architecture skills as a designer, and I design residences. So I've done churches, synagogues in the past. I did some retail, but for the last 15 years, I've really focused on residential. And let's say in the last 5, I haven't gotten any better as an architect. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, whichever. But my clients don't act that way. My clients in virtual reality, they look in there and they say, oh, I get it now. Oh, so that's why we're doing this. Yes, that's why we're doing it. So it's, again, I think it's trying to put ourselves in their shoes. That's really what we're trying to do. And what I'm trying to do is give them every opportunity to make the right decision for them, which might be the different decision for me. I mean, they might want that brick patio when I think the stone is better. But like before, I would always wonder if it was the drawing that did it for them, or if they were making the right decision. Now there's no question they are making the right decision for them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So more and more questions here. So we will stay on and answer questions for a while, as long as there is interest. And
or if I get hungry.
Yeah, I apologize if I've skipped over some. I'm trying to make sure we have a good range of questions, as opposed to asking the same question over, repeatedly. It does work for interior designers, absolutely. I mean, look at this. I mean, this is a spec house. It's just, Peter's quick design here, but just think about all of the design choices that you make when you're doing interiors, and how easy or hard or impossible it is for people to visualize those things, as well as.
Yeah, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, so absolutely for interior designers, landscape architects absolutely could use it, because there's a pretty good library of landscape on there. So so Twinmotion, does it essentially stitch together scenes, or is it truly creating an immersive environment or augmented reality? And someone else asked, can you walk around in here? So talk about how the goggles can be set up so that you can actually walk from one room to another. You not just turn your head.
Exactly. So what you do when you're in virtual reality is that you have this wand in your hand. You're wearing the goggles and you've got this wand in your hand, and that wand has this like blue beam that stretches out. And then when it sees a surface that you can stand on, which is any horizontal surface, then a little circle appears or something like that. And then you press the trigger and you're transported to there. So in my office, we've got about a 15 by probably 16 by 12 square. It's right over there. And so people walk around, so they get to this new spot, and then let's say that they're near that fireplace in the rendering, and they want to look around it. So they take 3 or 4 steps forward, and then they peek around it, and they can do that. And it's amazing. And then they want to go back to the kitchen. Well, then they would zoom back. And then the question is, how do you know when you're getting close to an actual wall or a filing cabinet or something? And the VR room, the space that's set up, once you get within a foot or so, this blue of an actual something, this blue grid shows up, and you know you're close. So then you, instead of walking more, you just use the teleport command. And so with this teleport command, you can go all through the whole house. It's no problem. And a ton of fun. I mean, people they're giggling while they're doing it. And my one client, she would like take the virtual reality goggles off to look at me. Goes, "This is amazing!" Then put them right back on. So I mean, that's the level of excitement that they get, because it's it's new, but they again, they need this help, and they should get it. This is this is something we should all be giving to all of our clients.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Okay, yeah, a lot of good questions. Now, overall, there are, I'd say, out of 700 people who attended, there were 2 or 3 who said, "Hey, I already knew all this. That you were just selling a course." And I want to just make a comment about this. Excuse me. For those people who already knew all of this, I'm sorry that you took an hour or whatever to watch something and you didn't learn. I think what Peter has brought to the table is not only a course that you can choose to buy if you like, but also a really clear explanation of why VR actually can make a difference in your architectural practice on a lot of different levels, and some of the key things you need to think about as you are working with the VR in terms of emotion and lighting, in terms of the importance of really getting your clients to see what you're seeing. So there's only a handful of comments like that. I just wanted to mention that. if you want your money back, you can get your money back for this free presentation. And anyway, I imagine whoever said that probably has already left, but I just wanted to make a joke about that. A bunch of people about Apple things here. So again, you can work with Twinmotion on Macs. You can get beautiful renderings on Macs. You may or may not be able to connect up to goggles. Right now, it does not appear, even with parallels or that you can necessarily do that. But this is probably going to change. Just right now, we can't say we have a workflow that does that.
Yeah, so hold on just 1 second, Eric. The reason I bought the computer I bought and the reason I bought the goggles I bought, which were the HTC Vive, that's the ones that I got, is when Apple 3 years ago put on their website the iMac Pro, they had right next to it Twinmotion, and right next to that the HTC Vive goggles, and they said all three work together. And I bought them all three, plugged everything in, and it didn't work. And again, I'm not a computer guy. I tell people all the time, I'm really good at Twinmotion, I'm really good at ArchiCAD, and I'm really good at email. Those are the three. And I'm particularly good at reply all. So that I can't do it doesn't mean it can't be done. But there's been a lot of chatter on the internet of why this can't be done. And again, my computer guy, who is a tech guy, who hired me, he couldn't do it. And as soon as he couldn't do it, I literally went out and bought a new computer. That very day, bought a PC, the first PC I think I've ever owned. So that's probably not true. But the first PC I've owned in 15 years.
Hey, there are some comments. Dave Yoakum says.
Before we even get to those, Chris has a comment about the SketchUp. So he knows something that neither of us.
I want to go to the Mac thing before you do SketchUp.
Okay.
Because Dave Yoakum says HTC Vive, which is one of the key headsets, can now be used on Mac with external graphics card. Info on Twinmotion site. There's someone else who also mentioned external GPU. So for a few $100s, something like $300, $400, $500, you can get a box that you connect up your Mac to, and it has a very, very high-end graphics card. And even though it may not be much better than a built-in late model Mac graphics card, it has the connections that can go to the goggle. So apparently you can be on the Mac. You just need to have this external box there. That's
yeah. So that is new information to me, which is again, we're finding out new stuff all the time. So.
Okay. So the Jordan says, I can't find the full motion video of this particular house on vrforarchitects.com. I guess we have your other house on there.
Put this one on. You've got it, right? You can do that.
Okay, I will post that. I apologize. Well, we've been moving quickly to get this ready. So, Chris, you had a comment about SketchUp.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with what Peter said. It definitely works with SketchUp. I have a friend, a colleague, who also uses Twinmotion, and he uses it with SketchUp because he had SketchUp models that he wanted to try it with at first, and it works great. It works the same with the SketchUp model as it does with a ArchiCAD model. Ultimately, it's better if you use the ArchiCAD model because then your workflow is all in one place. But yes, anybody who uses SketchUp and that's your workflow right now, this will be a great class for you.
Yeah, so and then what I'd love to do to those people who do is learn why you do that so that I can, because it might be better, maybe what you're doing is even better than what Chris and I do. I just wonder about that because I can't see that workflow as being straight. So having said that, I've been wrong a million times. So it would be just part of the discussion. We'd probably do that offline. And I'm totally interested also in the offline discussion of the external GPU for Macs. So, again, we can have some offline discussions. I'm super interested.
Yeah, but this is technology keeps moving, and hooray! If any of you have actually been using the external GPU option and with goggles, that would be great because then we can actually, interview you and get a little bit of the tech details of what how it's done. I'm confident that it can be done, but until we talk to someone who's using it, then all right. Now there is questions about Twinmotion just in general. Somebody says, I'm a Revit user. What is this Twinmotion? So Twinmotion is made by a company called Epic Games. I think they may have even bought the technology from another company. I can't remember.
They did.
Yeah, but of course they're a gaming company. Their big expertise is creating immersive worlds for people to spend time and lots of their energy and attention on. And I don't know why they've done it, but they've made the price so cheap, either free for ArchiCAD users who have our subscription, or $249 or something like that for others. It used to cost, what was it, $2,000 you paid?
It was almost free. $2,700, I believe, when I bought it 2.5 years ago. So that was one that I had to really think about. I had to really think about that. And it's a huge gain for Twinmotion users that Epic bought it, because they're a big company with this, has their expertise. Unreal Engine is their platform that they use. And so to me, I'm guessing here, but I would presume the jump from 2019's version to 2020 is so big that I think the quality is just amazingly better. And I would imagine that we're going to get that jump again, because Epic's going to do that. They're not a mom and pop company. They're experts everywhere. So I'm super excited about the future of Twinmotion. And again, they don't know me from Adam. I mean, I'm just a happy user. That's all I am from their perspective.
So as people have said, hey, well, how would you choose? There's a question between Twinmotion and Lumion or another platform. We probably don't have enough reference to say what's better. We do know that this works really well. It's very nicely integrated with ArchiCAD, and I'm assuming with Revit and SketchUp in the same way. So the course that Peter will be teaching will cover principles of how you make a model rendering, visualization, communication really powerful. The concepts that you have to think of when you're modeling that will fit into that. Ultimately, it would apply largely to other platforms, but of course the specific things of here's how you click on the texture library and you do this, are going to be more specific. So let's see. One person commented, you mentioned that most people get seasick with VR goggles, and Peter, you were saying that with the ones that have low refresh rates, where it's actually not able to keep up, that's the experience, but with the latest technology, it feels very natural.
Yeah, so the answer to that's yes. And again, people are, they're just a little bit giddy. Remember, this is, for me, what they're seeing is their dream, that they've been trying to describe to me, their home, whether it's a beach house or their principal residence. And they've described that we're working together, and then they put on the goggles for the first time, and it's like, I get those comments because there's complete understanding, right? And there's some beauty involved too. So the reason we bought the goggles, and my goggles are 2 years old because I bought them the day I got the computer that I'm looking at right now. So that's they're 2.5 years old, and these are more than good enough. The latest ones are even yet better. So.
Interesting. So Daniel Stewart says, I just looked, Lumion is like $2,000 and $3,000 for Pro. So it's probably a great tool. And, if you want to spend that money, I'm not sure, frankly, how it compares.
Well, I would say that let's, and I do not know this, I've never used Lumion, but let's say right now it's better. Twinmotion was bought by Epic Games. They're not going to sit on it, So again, I'm very excited to see what they're going to do in the future. And the future meaning it's already a lot better. Like the leap from 2019 to 2020 was huge. And I expect a similar leap in the year or two to come. So I guess it's just me speculating, but I'd be really surprised if I was wrong on that one.
So here we are in May 2020 as we record this. I know that I've seen information for ArchiCAD users that if you're on subscription, you get Twinmotion for free, subscription Arca Plus or whatever it's called in your area maintenance program. And it's free until like November of next year, 2021. So, you know, we'll see how this all goes, but it basically seems like you can have it for quite a while at no charge. Now, what will they charge in November of 2021? Who knows? But it's unlikely that it would be expensive. You know, they're not going to all of a sudden say you have to pay $2,000 to use it. You know, if they say, well, you have to pay $200 for next year, you know, well, if you're using it, it becomes obviously a very small investment. Someone mentioned, remember Atlantis? Yeah, I would say Atlantis is going to have a hard time competing with this. I used to sell it. I used to love working with it. Very quick visualization, but not really as high quality imagery. And I don't know that they have the VR, and they never, you know.
So, they do not have the VR, right? So that's they don't do that.
Yeah. So I like them, like the tool, but I'd say Twinmotion, you know, is a superior option. And some people have asked about BIMX, and Graphisoft ArchiCAD has an export to BIMX. It's good, but I guess, Peter, you were talking about it just feels sort of flat and sterile and not nearly as sexy because of the way the lighting, the way the other things work.
Right.
And the VR, now there is a point, maybe Peter, I don't know if you've had experience with Google Cardboard or something like that. So that if you, that's something where you put in your phone into a sort of a lightweight.
Peter, I have a comment on this one.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
And Peter will remember this. The very first time we tried doing this, we used my Android phone with a pair of $10 goggles, and we put it on the client's head, and the wife was fine with it. The husband got sick.
Not sick. He felt queasy.
He felt queasy. It was definitely an uncomfortable feeling for him, but it still worked. But it was the BIMX model. It didn't have anything near the visual wow factor that Twinmotion gives you, and the lower refresh rate was problematic.
Right. So let me just amplify that story just for a second. So that was David and Lisa, and Lisa's father was an architect, and he asked to attend this meeting, and so I said, sure, you know, of course. And but I was really nervous because, you know, I can imagine me trying to protect, you know, as an architect, trying to protect my daughter who's not an architect, and you know, I didn't know what he was going to do or say. I just didn't know. And so anyway, we did David first. He liked it, but got queasy. Then Lisa went. She loved it. And then Lisa's father went, and we couldn't get him out of it. And it was amazing because this is, you know, he had long since retired. And so then the next day he went to his coffee meeting with all of his friends, and he just talked for an hour nonstop about virtual reality. And this was the BIMX model. So Chris makes an absolutely amazing model. I mean, you got to take your hat off to Chris. I couldn't make a BIMX model that I would want to show somebody, but Chris can. And it's still not what we do now. I mean, it's not even close. So so that experience, I got 2 thank you notes at the end. I've never gotten a thank you note from a client, a written thank you note in the mail with a stamp, unless it's been a virtual reality meeting. And I get them, I don't know, maybe half the time almost, seems like. So, and they both David and Lisa wrote separately thank you notes, and neither knew that the other was even writing a note. They didn't write any other thank you notes. So that's the kind of experience that we're talking about. So, thank you.
So, question about, is the class at our own pace, live, interactive, and fixed time? So it's going to be 3 live sessions over the next few weeks, May 11th, 18th, and June 1st. We're skipping the Memorial Day, Monday. But then it'll all be in the member area, available for viewing at any time. So if you're watching this live, or in the next little while and you join us for the live class, you'll be able to ask questions of Peter, and it'll be a shared experience. But if you're watching this later on, you'll still be able to get all the benefit in terms of watching the recordings. And over time, that member area, Peter, you're talking about adding more materials to it, and I guess we'll set it up so you get permanent membership for the training classes and for the basic information, or for all the information goes in the near future. But it's possible, Peter says, you were talking about updating it on a yearly basis, and maybe there'd be a small subscription fee for that. So you won't ever have to pay again for the class. But if you want to get new updates and things like that next year, there may be some charge there.
Yeah, so we're talking about that. We don't know how that's going to be. I've been in business, like we said, for 15 years. I've gone through one and a half, recessions, and I've never not been busy, which knock on wood. But so I don't know how I'm going to start to divide up time, but this is I think maybe you can hear it in the tone of my voice. It's a passion project for me. I really want the world to take a big step forward with virtual reality, architects to take a big step forward in virtual reality, because I've seen the results. So how we're going to do it, how I'm going to create enough time, right now I don't know. But if you'd asked me a month ago how we're going to do this, I wouldn't have known the answer to that either. And so, I think with the right team, and we got a really good team, we'll be able to figure out ways. So we have ideas. We're working on them. We can agree to that, right?
Mm-hmm. So there's a question from Karen saying, does one's computer need to have the proper graphics card to participate in the class? I have a Surface Pro 7 on which I use Revit architecture. So I would imagine, this is a general comment, Twinmotion will perform better with a more substantial machine and with really good graphics card. And maybe to do the VR, you would need something better. But to learn the principles, to learn how to take a model in to Twinmotion and really dress it up and things, you're probably fine. It just maybe with a more complex model will slow down, take more,
and it might get buggy. So when Twinmotion gets confused, it crashes, and it gets confused on when the specs are below the minimum. So why don't we, Eric, put a link to that slide? It's probably right there in the middle, the minimum and the recommended Twinmotion, and then you can just look to see where you are on that. Because it's absolutely a something to be aware of. And I will say this, that the reason that I upgraded the RAM and the graphics card in the one of the versions, the get in the game version, was for just this kind of question, that I think you'll be, and again, the graphics card was $170 and the RAM for 16 gig of RAM was $32. That's something that I would very much consider if you're thinking about taking the class. And again, we'll put that slide up on our website so that you can see where those specs are. I'll send that to you before I leave tonight, Eric. Is that good?
Yeah, that's perfect. So Karen says, will we all be working on the same model in the class? So you'll have your own copy of the model, so you won't be like stepping on each other's toes there. But yeah, you'll all be working with, Peter, you've got of course, the original ArchiCAD model of this waterfall house, and we've gotten a Revit model, translating it through IFC. So this is an interchange format that keeps most of the intelligence and certainly all of the basic geometry and organization. So you'll have a Revit model available that'll be the same design.
Exactly. And the whole idea is that we're going to go through the step-by-step process, right? And then at some later point in time, you're going to say, well, hold on a second, and you're going to have the completed model done and say, how did he do that again? and then you can kind of reverse engineer. Oh, I see. So that's the idea. Again, I said this before, but I think it bears repeating. This is exactly what I would have wanted, 3 years ago when I first started this journey. So I'm just really giving everyone else what I felt would have been good for me. That's what we're doing.
So Stuart says, Stuart Peasley, you remember Stuart?
Yeah, hi, Stuart.
Says, as a Revit user, are there any significant differences or considerations? So ultimately, the Twinmotion environment is going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
The setup within Revit for the model is going to be quite similar. Yep. The principles will have to be applied, but it's going to have different dialog boxes, different settings to get certain things. But for the most part, we're talking about just organizing your model cleanly with different surfaces or materials, depending on what they're called in Revit, so that you differentiate a pine countertop from a pine floor, because they may be sort of the same wood, but they're going to have different treatments or different boards, parquet boards or whatever. So those principles are going to be the same. You just are going to have to apply it in your own environment.
Totally agree. And Stuart, we should get on a phone call. It's been too long. So if you're still on, let's connect up again. And what Eric says is exactly true. So Revit has a different way of organizing the same kinds of information that's needed than ArchiCAD has, which is fine. One's similar than the other, but they're just different. And so we'll figure that part out. That's not the biggest hurdle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a question about can you film walkthroughs with iMovie to put in newsletters, etc. And I know that Chris, you answered that you've done movies that you include on the website. Now let me make a couple of comments here, because I think this is a very interesting question. You can absolutely create great presentation materials, stills like we're looking at here, movies, etc. They can be put on your website. They can be sent to a client for private viewing, etc. Can you film a walkthrough that is someone actually with the goggles, what they see? You might be able to. But you know what? It's much better to actually prepare a series of scenes like what Peter has done, and you'll see in the Waterfall House when I post that video up there. Basically, what is going to be the most interesting thing to see? Not did I walk through the house and go through every room? So Peter, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So the difference, again, we keep kind of saying similar things. The difference between watching a movie and putting on goggles for me is zero, right? But for my clients, it's night and day again. So when they move their head and see stuff, they don't have to visualize anything anymore, nothing. So even with the movie, they wonder about the ceiling heights. I mean, that was a comment. I literally couldn't believe it. Wow, the ceilings are higher than I thought. They're 12 feet. Like, how high do you think that is? And so for me, I was just amazed at, even with the videos that I was doing, that my clients were learning a lot when they got into the virtual reality. So you can do that kind of thing, but it's not the same as having the goggles on. And you want them to have the goggles on as much as possible. That's my opinion.
So Karen asks, how does one sign up for the class? So vrforarchitects.com is the website you can see there, and you'll see a link at the top that says training course. That'll jump you down or scroll quickly down, and it's just near the bottom of the page is information about the class and the button to sign up. When you click that button, it'll take you to an order form where you just fill in credit card details or choose PayPal, and then pay the money, and you'll right now, because the course hasn't started yet and the member area hasn't been set up, you'll just get a receipt. But by tomorrow, I'll have at least the beginnings of the member area with some files, and you'll be able to download the ArchiCAD file or the Revit file, the Twinmotion file, and you'll even have some movie files to play around with. So that's the process. And for those of you who are watching this later, you'll basically be able to sign up and get immediate access to the training materials. There's a question about how to configure Twinmotion to get some white models or sketches. Would you use Twinmotion to get white models just with nice lighting?
Yeah, you can. So the way I would do that is, again, with the surfaces, but I would probably, the question is a good one, because in ArchiCAD, of course, you can just hit the white model BIMX, and it's super simple. I don't think it's quite that simple in Twinmotion. Having said that, I wonder if you hit the white model version of everything, that would work. And that's we just have never done it because we haven't needed to. So what we'll do, our workflow is we'll show people a plan, but then very soon we'll show them that 3D version of the plan. And that's kind of the white model version that I think you're talking about. But as soon as we start looking around the outside of the house, we're giving materials and all that. So so our workflow is a little bit different. I'm not saying that it's better. I'm not saying that our workflow is better. It's just a little bit different. My concern, just so you can hear what my concern is that once you start playing around with the surfaces, then you have to put them all back. So we might be able to, Chris, what do you think about overriding the surfaces, right, with white? Can we do that?
What do you mean in Twinmotion?
So if we wanted to do a white model, we would just override every surface with white, every single surface use that override button in
Yes,
ArchiCAD.
we could create we could create a layer combination and an override that changes the appearance of the model so that it is the white model, and bring that white model into Twinmotion.
So I think we can all see exactly why I'm just I couldn't be more pleased that Chris is on my team. Yes. So okay.
So there's been a series of comments from Bruce Rich, and I want to thank you, Bruce, because you've made some very thoughtful comments, which we haven't been able to address in detail, but talking about how much level of detail and whether it decimates the fee because you're putting in all of that time and effort, which we did address. He had an interesting comment just now, and I'd be happy to talk to you, Bruce, offline to go deeper on this. But he says, is there more money in marketing VR software instruction than actually doing architecture?
No.
Peter, you make a good living as an architect because you work with discerning clients who have budgets and are willing to pay you good money for that, right?
Yes. So no, the answer is no. Like yeah, maybe if VR for architects takes off and there's 100,000 members, then maybe it will be. At the prices that we're offering this, no, this is a huge hit for me personally from a financial perspective. But I'm not talking about that right now. What I am talking about is trying to get everyone forward, and our industry. We're lagging, and again, I'm just one guy. I have a great team around me, so I feel like we can make some headway right now. So that's why we're doing this. But no, I'm not making more money. I'm making less. Yeah. But that's okay for me for right now.
Okay. But Bruce, I'm happy to talk to you. If you have some ideas for what you'd like to leverage your time, the one thing that I will say is that any type of effort that you can do where you take your expertise and you leverage it for many people is a good thing to do. May or may not be more profitable than doing a beautiful design that's only for one client, but they are willing to pay a premium, and you get great satisfaction because you're making a masterpiece and they love it and all of that. But still, one of the things I love doing is I love helping architects through online training, and that's how I make my living, rather than doing one-on-one coaching and one-on-one training, because I can leverage that. In the same way Peter is taking this. No, it's not so much that he wants to get rich, it's just he knows that he has a skill that people can use. And so by putting in, let's just say, after he's done all of this learning, Peter, and you're putting in, I'm just going to say 30 or 40 hours to conceptualize this, create this presentation, another 20 or 30 hours to create the materials for the course. So maybe you're putting in 50 or 60 hours, but it's based on the fact that you've been an architect for all this time, you've been using ArchiCAD all this time, you've been using VR, all right, so another 50, 60 hours, and now this knowledge is being shared with all of you who are on this call, and all of you who may later on, participate. So it's a great thing to do. Now, he's not going to be able to retire on this, nor will I, but we are helping a lot of people. And
yeah, and it was a, again, the money is the money. It's not the reason that I personally am doing this. It's not the reason that Chris did it. Chris, when he started this process, there was no money. And so we just had an idea, and then we started to put things together. And then it was after that I called Eric and Richard, and then things started to so, are we the nicest people on the planet? No, but we are trying to help our industry, which needs a little bit of help right now. And maybe it should have been somebody else, and maybe it even is somebody else. But right now we're here and we're trying. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. So Bruce does follow up. If it's not money, what's Peter's incentive? And I will repeat something that's maybe just a variation of what you just said.
Yeah.
When I asked Peter about this, so Peter, I think one of the reasons why Peter is uniquely qualified to teach this is because he's not only a very fine architect and pretty darn good at this technology stuff, he is also well trained in marketing. Now,
that's true.
That helps. That helps, of course, in this presentation to reach all of you, and we got 1,500 people signed up for this because of the way that he structured it and we structured it. But ultimately, what you want from all of this is to use it as a business development tool, as a way of improving your business, right? Okay, so one of the things that Peter told me a long time ago is I don't want to be known as a marketer of architecture services, even though I know that's a very big part of my job is to market my services. I want to be known as an architect. So I said, Peter, why do you want to be teaching this stuff? Do you want to be known as a teacher of VR for architecture? He said, I don't mind that. In fact, I'd love to be the guy from Timonium, Maryland, who helped bring this industry into a new age. Maybe not the only person, of course, but just like one of the key figures who just helped, show architects a way to do this. So,
yeah. So
anyway, that's just a comment to Bruce Rich specifically. Motivations. That's part of it.
Yeah, and the yeah. So the motivation. The real question is, why would I sort of give away a competitive advantage? And the answer is, it has nothing to do with money. It's just the kind of person I am. And I'm actually very comfortable competing with anybody only on design, right? Design, personality, I can compete. I've done it for years anyway. So I'm happy to do that. Compete, when I add virtual reality into it, it becomes, it becomes, again, like I am very confident in my abilities right now, but I really do think that our industry needs to take a big step up. I mean, again, this is not out of reach. I just think that people think it's out of reach. All I'm trying to do is light a little fire to get them, take a little stroll across a bridge. Some of those bridges are a little bit lengthy, and some of them are really short. And so let's get people to the virtual reality world. That's what I want. It's a kind of a passion project, I guess is really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. So Bruce, it looks like at some point your comments got deleted and then you pasted them in. I appreciate that you did that. I didn't do that. I'm not sure if Chris, you thought they were unnecessary or something like that. Certainly don't mean to censor you. All of these are valid questions and you have every right to every opinion you have, as well as whether you choose to learn from Peter or not. Ultimately, we're offering something here that people, all of you who are still on this call or watching this, can choose to take an opportunity and use it. And if it's not right for you now or ever, then, keep going with what works for you. Interesting comment from Michael saying, my belief is if you don't keep up with tech, you get left behind. And I think ultimately, if we look at technology as an enabling resource that has enabled human beings to do things that couldn't have been done 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, this is just one example of a technology that takes you beyond cave painting technology, takes you beyond 2D. Our clients just trying to understand what they're seeing into a whole new way. And I love the way you put it. Maybe this is a good image just to finish, Peter, is you're taking the client into the world of your imagination.
Right.
You're really, while it's not the only thing, I mean, and BIM and 3D do a lot of that, this is another step further. In terms of realism and in terms of the immersive quality. The realism for anyone, even if you don't have the goggles, the immersive quality when you go a little bit further. And then the really nice thing is that you get all the realism. You can use that for all sorts of things on the web and, printed materials and things like that. And the goggles are like the little icing on the cake that is almost no effort, a little bit of expense to set up, but has, it's like that last little ingredient, that you go, what'd you do to that recipe? That is good,
Yeah, so that William Gibson quote that I put up early in there, the future is here, it's just very unevenly distributed, which is exactly the case. So virtual reality is here. So, this guy in Timonium, Maryland, of all places, figured out how to do it. And, we're just Chris and I. That's the firm. We work with Patty in New Jersey, and we've worked with some other people, but really it's Chris and I, and so we figured it out. So if the two of us can figure it out, then there'll be people popping up all over. And so do you want to be on the front end of that, or do you want to be competing against it? And either way, because again, a mentor of mine was a very, very, very talented architect and drew by hand. Right, drew by hand, and an extremely talented architect. Like spaces that took my breath away. I went into homes that he designed, took my breath away. So I'm not saying that good architects use virtual reality and bad architects don't. No, I'm just saying that the future is here. It's just unevenly distributed and very unevenly. And you can distribute it. You can help you if you want. That's it. It's not a it's just it's a choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So, Peter, thank you so much, and Chris as well. Thanks for your help in answering questions, and of course in helping Peter be able to implement all of this stuff. It's my pleasure to help bring this to all of you, to take Peter's skill, knowledge, and passion and help get in front of you. Again, if you have questions, visit vrforarchitects.com. You can email info@vrforarchitects.com. That'll come to me, and I will either answer it or pass it along to Peter. If you want to sign up for the course this coming week, you will get that extra little discount. I think it's going to be a fantastic experience for everyone who's joined. I saw as we were going through, a couple of dozen people signed up even while we were running through this, and we had a couple of dozen beforehand. So we're definitely, I wouldn't say filling up. In other words, it's a digital course. It won't sell out, but we're definitely going to have a good group of people going through this first run through of the course. So
Yeah,
Peter, congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm super excited about that because again, like I listened to a podcast called Make Me Smart, and their little tagline is that none of us is as smart as all of us. And I totally agree to that. And so I'm really looking forward to getting that VR community together. Maybe this is my part of my motivation is I'm super excited about getting that community together and starting to work for all of us. So I hadn't thought about that and putting two and two together, but that's part of it. So I look forward to that, and it starts in a week. So very much looking forward to it.
All right. Well, take care, Peter, Chris, and all of you. Be safe. Take good care, and we shall be back with more soon. If you join us in the course, you'll be getting, of course, all the information about the connection. So look forward to talking with you one way or another and helping you take the leap into virtual reality for architects.
Perfect. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.